afternoon session. We're doing resource management, admin, and public works, and some capital projects. Can't wait to hear from gentlemen. It's going to be very enlightening. At this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Applegate. Mr. Applegate?
I'm going to turn it over to Tricia, and
I'm going to turn it over to Lori.
yeah,
I could have done that very simply.
we have a new tradition now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lori Bailey Brown, Director of Resource Management, and here to go over the budget for fiscal 23 for resource management. Here's our org chart, and that, as most of you all know, includes purchasing, OMB, the MSBUs, risk management, and we also have the print and mailing services under OMB. Very crucial service we'll get into in a moment. We'll talk first about our achievements of the last year. The MSBU program created the largest MSBU to date outside the solid waste MSBU with 2,271 properties for the Deer Run land stabilization. We're very proud of that new MSBU. And risk management implemented a safety observation initiative, encouraging employees to report hazards in the workplace. We made a lot of improvements or strides towards increasing safety awareness, and very proud of that. And then, of course, resource management has administered the $92.6 million in American Recovery Program Act funds. That's been ongoing, at least feels like longer than a year, but we're about 1/3 of the way in. There's been a lot of learning and staying on top of the latest guidance, working closely with our legal department to bring county manager the updates necessary. In addition to that, we received our awards in purchasing and OMB for excellence in the industry, and we're very proud of those, even though it's our 30th for OMB and our 19th award for public procurement.
So the resource management total FY23 budget request is $55 million. That includes programs that are underneath Glory, as well as some county-wide payments that we have to make. 50% of our budget is dedicated towards MSBUs. The general fund is 13%. That's primarily the budget office and purchasing. We have 12% for internal service funds. That's risk management and property liability. It's not our health insurance fund. And then the debt service, those are debt service payments that we make. It's basically all county-wide debt service payments excluding water and sewer. So the FY22 adopted budget for resource management is $53 million. That number is going up to $55.2 million. And there's a few significant changes. So first of all, I'll jump to the bottom and just point out that we do have some grants that are in the FY22 adopted budget. ERAP, it's a federal assistance grant, so that's a one-time item. It's not really a reduction necessarily. In our personnel line, we have existing FTEs, and then there's a request for one new position in our mailroom. On the operating side, we have two significant adjustments. One is related to property or liability insurance. And then the other is related to our solid waste MSBU. And then in the debt service, we did put early on in the budget process $3.2 million in as a placeholder. It's an estimate for one half of a year of the debt service on the 5 points court phase. So this slide, which removes one-time budgets, including grants, shows that our overall budget is going from $46 million to $55 million, with the largest item being essential charges. That's where our debt service is paid from. That's the $3.2 million, and then the MSBU fund, solid waste. We have 42.5 FTEs in the current budget. We're requesting one new mail center technician for a total of 43.5.
And then the budget highlights. From the slide Tim showed you a couple of slides ago, you saw the biggest increase is I'm jumping down to the last bullet, the MSBU solid waste. As you know, we increased rates this year for the increased costs that are incurred in the solid waste fund to the tune of about $4 million. Next in line as far as increases, we had, I'll talk about our new FTE. The position we requested this year is a mail center technician. We have a supervisor and a senior mail technician, and one mail center tech. So all of the mail and printing services of the county are performed by 3 FTEs. They're very diligent and relied upon, and this additional position will enable them to be able to take time off without putting a hardship on the rest of the team. And mainly it will allow for, or when someone gets sick and has to take time off unexpectedly, that it doesn't delay services or hinder services. So they're looking forward to having that addition, and that is currently in the budget. Insurance expense did increase this year. That was the other line item that you saw. That's primarily due to having increased values of property on the book, on the insurance book, if you will. We added at least a fire station, the CJC, I think coming into this year. And I don't know that the golf course was included in that one, but as you know, we add properties most years, and actually that attributed to like a 21% increase in insurance expense. We also, the valuation of the equipment that rolls through our property liability, as we replace older equipment with newer equipment. Also, there was cybersecurity, which had an increase of 20% this year. We're not expecting that kind of increase to continue once the market stabilizes for governments and cybersecurity. Other than that, we have a one-time, it might be a little more than one time, might be about 4 times, because I think it's going to take us a few years to pay for the risk management information system that we do have in this year's budget, in the FY23, when I say this year's budget. That's to help risk management manage the claims that they experience, whether it's property insurance claims or workers' compensation claims. They currently use a menagerie of tools available, such as OnBase or Access databases, SharePoint, but mostly emails. Our risk manager does a great job of keeping his emails organized such that he can keep track of each claim that's out there and where it's at. But an information system designed for tracking these claims would be beneficial to that division, especially, and help the staff stay on top of where they're at and keep track of where they're at more efficiently. So that's also in this year's budget and part of our increase.
That concludes resource management.
Okay. Melanie, you have any written requests?
We do not.
Is there anyone in the audience that'd like to address the board at this time? Anyone in the audience? See no requires public input, board discussion or direction. Any questions from the board? Anything I'd like to add? No, Lori? Very impressed with all your hard work as well as your staff.
Thank you very much.
This time move on to the next department.
Up next is administration department. We have,
That would be me. I'm not going to move seats if that's okay.
Excuse me?
Melanie is going to tag team me on this with me as well, if that's okay, because she was also involved in the budget preparation process, for the various offices that fall under the umbrella of administration. So a lot of folks don't realize, in fact, I'll be honest in saying I was one of them, that when we refer to administration, we refer to these different groups. I always thought of it, I thought HR was an administration, so it's good to kind of take a look at the org chart and know what really falls under the umbrella of this group moving forward. So I'll talk first about, go right ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the administration department is 100% general funded. Their budget is $6.5 million in the current year, and it's going up to $6.8 million. That's primarily personnel related, although there are no requests for additional FTEs in the new budget. The capital line that you see, the $225,000, that was a law automation software package that was purchased in FY22, so it's a one-time budget. Overall, their base budget's going from 6.3 to 6.8, and primary adjustment, the primary budget adjustment is in the county manager's office. They have $75,000 for CMO consulting, And as I mentioned, there's no new positions, so all the adjustments that you see are primarily just existing personnel, benefits and salary adjustments. 44 FTEs in the proposed budget.
So just a couple of highlights I wanted to mention. The SGTV engineering consultant, community information budget actually decreased this year. If you recall, the position, Paul Lewis retired. And rather than filling that position, we have reorganized it. We hired a position to do more videography that's split funded between general fund and fire. That because of the amount of time that Colin spends doing videos and so forth for fire. And then we have a contract in the SGTV community information budget for a consultant who can then work on engineering issues, any technology challenges that we have that would fall outside of the realm of information services. So that's why we have a decrease in our budget, but that is also because we were able to reclassify a position to a lower pay band. With respect to the consulting services, that falls under the county manager's office. This is a diversity and inclusion consultant, diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. This is something that Joe Abel put into the budget, and it remains. We are reviewing our options in terms of how we best move forward with that, filling that consulting role. So there's been some state legislation, if you recall, that passed that changes how local governments may work with diversity and inclusion programs, so we want to fully understand that before we contract with anyone. But that's the primary increase to that budget. And those are the highlights, but what questions can we address?
Great. Molly, any written questions?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience would like to speak to the board on this topic? Close public input, board discussion. The only discussion that I would have, if there's no discussion, is, I know we've done this in the past where we have a total allotment of travel and per diem for all the commissioners as one pot, and it's based on a first come, first served basis. I'd like to split it up if there's no objections by office, since there's 25,000 there, just do 5,000 per office instead of just one big lump sum. Is there any objection to do that?
Well, we just made the decision last year to do it the way we
Well,
did it.
I know that, so I'm asking
So
the
why are
question.
we,
Because
what
right-
did not work well that we need to fix?
It's just first come, first serve, and, I just wanna make sure that all the commissioners are getting their fair amount of money to spend.
If I can just also, we haven't really gone even close to that number though, Bob, so I don't see where we really need to change it, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take it, but, because of the position I have right now, it's gonna be hard for me, to stay within that, this year.
With that position,
Some of it is
Fact.
paid for by the fact,
factually
yes.
paying for that position, not us.
Fact is paying for much of that position, yes.
So you shouldn't really have a problem staying within that $5,000 line item, so to speak.
How many of us have gone over 5,000? Have I?
None of
No.
us.
I'm at 0.
Well, but you don't attend the conferences that I go to, and that wasn't a slam. I'm just saying, like, how many of us are going? How many of us are using it?
2 of you.
Probably.
So it's just
Pretty
the two
much.
of
And
us.
there's Commissioner Zembar uses a little bit of travel to the medical examiner. That's it.
Are there other commissioners that want to go and do things that aren't able to, or don't
Just-
think they can go do it because of
Just
budget?
wanna make sure that we're all spending money effectively, and we're keeping track of it effectively, that's all. You guys don't wanna do it, that's fine. Commissioner,
Why don't we, as an alternative, so that we're not flip-flopping back and forth, put a stopgap in there that when we hit the half-spend mark, we get a notification or something to that effect, and just.
Getting a report every month or every.
Are we? I
We
don't
were, but I think we stopped because somebody was
I'm
doing
not
that.
seeing
But I
the
will,
I
I
don't know
can,
that
we
I've
can
seen it.
continue to send you a quarterly report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we went from putting it in the agenda and having to
Correct.
I'm
approve
not
it.
asking you to do that.
I know, I'm just doing a little like the history of travel and the BCC offices. I can go back to 2004 if you want.
No,
but
no.
probably don't need to.
Thank you.
Because it's changed, well, I mean, it's just,
It was
it changes based on
2007.
commissioners. It changes based on commissioners' attitudes towards other commissioners. It changes, I mean, it's been used for good and it's been used for evil. So I just want to make sure we're continuing to use the travel budget for good. And I just,
And it has to get approved.
it has, yeah, and this has been a thing too, is that in the past, the county manager has approved the travel, which is awkward, because does it put the county manager folks in that awkward situation of having to say, actually, Commissioner, you're spending too much, or this is something someone else should pick up? Do we need to change the way that gets approved? I don't know.
So I'll just say, if you don't mind, I review them just to make sure it's accurately put down, because sometimes there's the mileage might be incorrect or the documents. And after that, I mean,
It hasn't caused a problem, and it's only $25,000. I'm sorry.
to date, we've used
There's no
83.
support, let's move on.
Okay, thank you.
We'll send you a report on what
Not
we've used
gonna-
to
Would
date.
that,
against the wall?
my question is, would the report also include the travel for the aides, which is new?
Yes,
this year?
it will, it
Okay.
can, and we've used 8,300 to date for the district offices, so we're not a third, we've used a third of it.
So we used a third of it for almost
And
for the entire year, 9 months.
Yes.
For 3/4, we've used 1/3. Got it.
Let's move
I'm
on.
sorry, what, travel for aides? I didn't even catch that.
So we put that in, if you recall, we did an amendment, a mid-year adjustment to allow them to get travel when they had to deliver, go to events or to deliver things to their commissioners' offices or their homes or whatever. This was so they could have it, because they shouldn't be driving,
Agreed.
and that's what this is for.
Agreed.
It's $600.
On that same venue, Mr. Applegate, are we updating the
This is
per
the other
mileage
one.
usage allowed by the federal government? We keep
Yeah.
it, because
So the-
The other
yeah.
one.
they just increased it.
Yeah, just changed.
And also, I'd just like to say, as the interim county
So
manager,
make sure that when we charge you, we're getting the maximum we can out of it.
okay, I'd also like to say, as the interim county manager, kudos to the county attorney for putting together that detailed budget for the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Any other comments?
What an incredible partnership.
Move on to Mr. John Dredge, Public Works, Mr. Dredge.
Oh, no, I've got it here. Good.
I'm gonna have to go down this. Thanks for showing me this.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I have with me Johnny Morgan. She's the finance administrator for engineering. We have, as you see, Public Works, I have a several division, and each division has a several, also multiple program. Such as the division, we have engineering and development review, you have facility maintenance and fleet. We have watershed management and mosquito control. Also, we have road and stormwater and traffic operation, and we have land management. All those division, or most of them divisions, they have a civil program through under those division. Because of time, I have listed a very few items of the accomplishment for each division, starting with 5-plant project. We have the construction of started with this year as the CJC. We have the annex building. Also, we have the parking garage, the central chiller plant, and some of the underground utility improvement in 5-plant. Second item, the Penitex project. We started about 74 projects last year and completed about 120 projects, including 65 lane mile of road resurfacing. Facility maintenance, as a 3,103 preventive maintenance work order completed. The fleet, 3,554 in-house preventive maintenance work order completed. Road and stormwater, 3,247 work order completed. Watershed management, we implemented the shoreline protection program. Also, mosquito control completed 1,935 work order. Development review as well is at 659 planning, 3,680 building review, 58 site permit, and 3,324 engineering inspection. Also, we acquired about 68 parcel acquired for by the real estate management program.
So Public Works FY '23 budget request is $106 million. It includes a lot of different types of programs. So there's really three primary areas. We have our sales tax fund, that's our CIP program, that's 48%. General fund includes fleet, facilities, and water quality, our watershed management division, and then you have our transportation trust fund, which is primarily roads and traffic engineering. Their overall budget is staying relatively flat, given that that's due to sort of a natural adjustment in our sales tax program. So what we did is we broke out the public works into three separate pieces that I think are more relevant, you know, when you're trying to do this sort of review and analysis. So the general fund programs, which is you see the list there, but the biggest pieces of the general fund are the fleet, facilities, and water quality. We've got increases in fleet from 2.4 million to 3.1 million related to fuel. So John submitted his budget request in March, and at that time he put in an adjustment of about $700,000 for fuel. And then we also have adjustments to our fleet maintenance contract of $150,000. Facilities has multiple different areas, nothing huge, but we have just general personnel increases. It is a personnel-heavy operation, and then they have inflationary increases for custodial contract, security guard contract, and electricity. And then in water quality, there are two one-time requests, one a field seeker water module, and then some weather stations. So this is our transportation trust funded programs, and you see the biggest ones. We have CIP delivery, roads and stormwater, and traffic operation. Primarily, the biggest adjustment is in roads and stormwater. 300,000 of that is related to staff changes. Existing staff, just personnel budget changes to existing staff. And then you also have concrete and lumber prices going up. And then in traffic engineering, there's increased costs for cabinets and traffic signal parts. And then last we have our sales tax program. This is 56 projects in the sales tax fund totaling $51 million. The reduction is just the nature of the CIP planning process. The mobility and impact fee funds, those are, there's two projects. We're using the remaining fund balance in our impact fee funds. One is the Horn Boulevard improvements, and then North Street corridor improvements. Public Works has 283 FTEs. They're actually asking for 3 new positions, 2 positions in the CIP delivery program, and then 1 position in fleet, a certified automotive tech, and they're using 1 vacancy in the roads division to fund the fleet position, so a total of 285.3 FTEs.
Okay, and your request for the FTE project manager and also the professional engineer, a lot of projects we have existed and also coming online. You have a 5-point multiple project. You have the fire station, also multiple fire station we manage, the design, we manage the construction. And also we do this year, and next year we're doing a lot of what I call it basin study. Will generate a lot of project as well. And we are updating master plan, the transportation master plans this year going on now, and also adding the East Mobility Master Plan for the East Seminole County. Also next year we'll have the update of the Stormwater Master Plan. All those work. It is really our staff today is that manage a lot of projects, and they have a lot of big load, especially in the vertical. All the 5-point and the fire station, I have only one vertical, and I'm giving him some help to manage all those. So, and the third one is for the fleet. One additional technician for fleet. We add in a lot of generator for environmental services, and our fleet expanding, and so. And then what you have in here is the Sunray Transition Implementation Budget. As you all know, and you about the transition we're preparing today for next year will be some cost for the contract, a lot of contract, a lot of agreements that will be going through it, and also we have the new fare system assessment. We will they will be hiring somebody to monitor it to make sure it is accurate, and I have talked to the stakeholder. They are budgeting about $1 million as a placeholder. Really, what we need and whether is $1 million too much or less, we don't know any cost estimate. But that's what when I talked to them, I requested for $1 million. And for the fleet, for the fuel, as Tim said, we've been monitoring the prices, and the price really is the last. We paid the last price we paid this week on gas is about $3.42 per gallon, and the diesel for $4.47. Based on today, if I have to use the money today for the budget, I'm short $850,000. And talk to them. I think Timmy put to my understanding, $1 million to that. But we will be monitoring it as the approval of the budget get closer. But that's what I have. I'd be glad to answer any question.
Before we go to the board, Melanie, any requests? Yes, sir. Anyone in the audience would like to speak to the board? Anyone in the audience? We'll close public comments. Board discussion. Commissioner Herr?
So Tim, you probably have this, and I know Tim has it. I don't want to put you on the spot, but number of open positions, and specifically number of open positions that have been there for a long period of time.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. We have around over 52 positions open, 30 of them in road and stormwater. That's the majority of it, and that been fluctuating. They go between 20 to 30 throughout the year. This year and last year, we're having a hard time. And if we have something that's been over a year, probably we will be in that division. The rest of them.
How many?
My record showed 54. John mentioned 52, so we're right in line there.
Yeah, because we
How
have.
many over a year? Or 6 months was the cut I looked at.
Give me 1 second.
And just so you know, John, while Tim is looking at this, I did this countywide, a review of all open positions, and then did a cut at 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Some of them have been open for more than a year. And so I've been having ongoing discussions with the finance team around the notion that if a position's been open for over a year, it's really not a vacancy anymore. Carrying it on our books might not be the best financial planning mechanism. So, and I know they've talked to a lot of the departments about that, but I'm probably going to continue to bang this drum, because if you're doing your jobs without the positions, then the positions are not critical, is how it would be looked at in any other organization other than a government entity, and maybe in some government entities. So I support the additions, and I noticed that you took one out of an existing position, so I appreciate that. Thank you, and wonder if it can't go further.
If I may answer, on the road and stormwater, we have a program. We have 5 districts. We divide them into districts. And those services, we're behind on services we provide for services. And we've been struggling to hire people. I'm hopeful that with the salary adjustment for those positions, hopefully we'll turn around and do. Because public work, if we're not proactive on those type of stuff, it is the infrastructure, everything will overgrow and will get us into trouble down the road. And the last what we try to do, we try to prioritize. We're behind, road and stormwater, they're behind on we try to prioritize. We'll get to the most urgent first. And I do agree with you. If a summer position, 2, 3 years, 4 years, a year is not, it will become, okay, why are we carrying it? But the other position, what you say, it is really has not been long. Like, for example, you call engineering. I have a couple of them retired this year. A couple of them left. It is more like a change. As the same thing, we have hard time also in hiring what I call it mechanics. We've been creative too, and what we do, we send more sub it out, which cost us more money. Hopefully, with that adjustment of the budget, it'll give us more flexibility. That's what also the consulting. They do have a problem getting staff sometimes. They do work. We get some time of people apply, say, hey, I'm applying here because the consultant working 60 hours because I don't have people. And hopefully that is short time in the next year that will overcome and get better.
Commissioner Zimbow and
Whoa,
Commissioner.
whoa, whoa, I have a question on the table that didn't get answered, so.
8 positions are vacant over a year.
And so my question still stands, and maybe the number's not 8, but is it not possible to fund all of these out of those, there's only 2 left, out of that?
What the positions are, because that makes a little bit of a difference if it's a part of a crew or.
Yeah, these are in roads. So there's a few. I'll just list. We have a survey party chief, a crew chief, a maintenance worker 1, equipment operator 1, herbicide applicator, another equipment operator 1, science and marketing technician, traffic, and another equipment operator 1. So 3 equipment operator 1s have been vacant since at least July of 2021.
And so from my perspective, it's not a swap to the position, it's a swap to the cash flow and the cash projections. You would remove one and add one. It's not, I'm not asking for you to fill those positions, but I think we, as an organization, have to rethink a couple of things. One is, I think the teams are very judiciously carrying these positions on the books because coming to us and asking for positions is just miserable. So let's just own that. And then I think if we get to the point where we're not managing through vacancies, because we manage a lot of the budget through vacancies, that's our wiggle room. There's no doubt about it. That we have, and some departments have bigger vacancy rates than others, and that may be cyclical, and So I just think there's room in there for more, I don't even want to call it fiscally responsible, because we're fiscally responsible, but more technically responsible budgeting. And so what do we really have? At some point, with 54 open positions and 8 of them that are over a year, I didn't even ask the number that's over 6 months, we're no longer managing FTEs from a governance standpoint. It's just not good governance. So I offer that as food for thought for us in terms of maybe we don't change it this year. I think there's opportunity here to fix this. But in future years, we really have to look at this.
In that same vein.
Sure.
The reason why I asked what positions they were is because if there's a particular theme that we can see in the in your work orders where you're falling behind in certain areas, it could be because you're missing one of those team members from that team, and so you don't necessarily want to take that position and move those funds. I'm not saying the actual position, but at some point you want to fill that slot, so you need to have that money there, hoping that you'll be able to get that marker person or whatever the thing is. I would like to see not just a vacant position summary, but where we are with work orders, because I think that lag time, it would be my hope that we would get back to a fully staffed organization so that we're not having the phone calls of, this ditch hasn't been maintained in a year and a half, right? I know our ditch maintenance is, how behind are we on ditch maintenance, honestly?
Well, it is anything with road and stormwater. Now, if you take a work order and also if they plan something, that planning, is it take longer or
It takes
less?
significantly longer.
Longer because we're short on.
Because we're short staffed. So I don't want to fix one problem and then find out we are now back in the market in terms of hiring with the salary changes, and now we've used those funds to plug a different hole, and now we've, I don't know. I want a big picture on those open positions.
Commissioner?
I get the idea. I get the concept.
Well, I think because I did some diving into this, I think there's a piece that's 8 of the 54. So when you look at it, there's typically there's a path where they're migrating through. Because I looked at this the first year I was here as well and questioned it, and it's continued in pace. Now, will the compensation study change some of that? But I was making the argument back then of if we can't fill positions in a department, we need to rescale the pay structure in there, take some of the positions out of it, pay the people what they need to get paid, so you stop the bleeding on the back end. But we waited for the pay study and all of that good stuff. So I do think we need to look at it in whole, but we would need to look at it from the perspective of what's that ramp up. There's other positions in there that are those positions that are also in the 3 months and 6 months, and to get to your point of, can you get the ditch repaired?
Commissioner Zimbo?
Thank you. I would agree with my fellow commissioners who've brought up the FTEs. I've been also watching that since the day I arrived here and have done a real deep dive. And my hopes are, with this compensation study, and if we are going to adopt a policy, if staff's going to adopt a policy to revisit a compensation study every 2 to 3 years, we perhaps can mitigate this problem of having so many open FTEs. That said, I would argue there's probably at least 20 to 25% that are on the books that probably are not needed.
Of the open positions.
Of the open positions, that's correct. And hopefully the compensation study does help mitigate that problem. But this is more of a question maybe for Tim, and John, you might be able to help answer this as well. There's an overlying theme through all of these, and of course part of budget preparation is knowing what historically was budgeted for a given line item. And I see a lot of line items that have gone way up, I understand cost of living goes up. I understand all those things. I understand market pressure comes to bear on certain things. But let's take example in shop supplies. It's on page 91. It's account 003, shop supplies, with a 275% increase. Why would we be going up 275% on shop supplies if we're not either doubling the size of our productivity and shop environment, or is this something that's been missed historically that now we have found the right place to put it?
It is for,
I have a pretty good idea what should go in that column.
shop, okay, 7. And sometimes, if you look at the fleet, and sometimes they'll take one item, they put it in another item. But if you look at his a fleet, in any of those operations, other than the personnel, they are very, it is very close at the end of the year, and they run flat. And what you have, and also you have old facilities, you have old equipment and a fleet. And I'll be glad to give you the number of it, but we went from 20,000 to 75,000, and I'm sure that is something, it's a one-time.
So that's my question. I mean,
Yes.
what historically goes into that column? You've got equipment. You got a line item for equipment. You got a line item for maintenance. You got a line item for service. So are those things that are just general cleaning items, chemicals?
Yes, it is more like a cleaning item, and something it is as a product they supply for the miscellaneous supply for the office, for the shops.
Okay.
Yeah, or it could be sometimes a smaller piece of equipment cost $4,000 or $3,000. Could be sometimes a tool.
But shouldn't those go in the line item for equipment or tooling?
It is the equipment that is a certain those equipment. If they are exceed a certain amount, 5,000 and more, they
Okay.
go as a
And then my final question in regards to this is fleet towing. Fleet towing is going up 66.7%.
yeah.
And I understand some of the costs, towing expenses have gone up about 12 to 15% in the past year. Is that a number just, you think
No.
it could run that, or?
Yeah, I can give you copy on all those. They do have what they do. They budget there is a budget on actual, and they go probably 5% or 10%. Depend on the item. It depend if the prices went up.
And just off the top of your head, not exact, of that fleet towing, what percentage is heavy equipment related? In other words, over a 2-ton vehicle or a piece of construction equipment,
I can give you-
backhoe, something like
I
this.
can't give you those. I don't have it. but
And the reason I ask that is I'd be interested to know, with the amount of money we're spending annually for fleet towing, it may not be a bad idea to look at why, like many other counties, we don't have our own towing capabilities.
Yeah, we can look into that, but all those costs, they are itemized,
Understood.
and we can give you in the detail how many, the type of towing, and even what division, what department. We do have that.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Constantine?
Thank you. Along those lines, I looked at that line item, shop supplies, but then looked at the one right next to it, and I'm not in the car business like Commissioner Zimbauer, but there we had 175,000 less. So I basically look, you put, battery thing here and put it someplace else, and that's pretty much what you did.
That's why you're not in the automotive business.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's why I go to you when it comes to that. But we had 175,000 in fleet parts. We had another 25,000, whatever, in the other. But my question, I've got more. Let me just say, there's a couple of things. Number one, do you do in your budget all the custodial services for the county? Okay, so the custodial services increased over 20% coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, and we do have a new contract, we just awarded it, it's went up that much, yes. But this in here, under facility, not under fleet.
Okay,
This
this,
facility, yes. We do, they went up. All those is actual.
I just, but you do run all the custodial. So would you please ask them that when we throw the recycling in the recycling, that they actually put it in recycling instead of just throwing it back in the garbage? See, that's all, because that's what I found out was happening.
That might
okay?
take another 0.5 FTE.
Maybe,
I would charge them for it.
but they were just throwing all the recycling.
You know, unscrew all the caps off the water
Oh,
fountain.
come on now.
Well,
I mean,
somebody's gotta do it.
if we got a recycling bin in our office, we might as well hope.
And we have to teach
With the
people.
budget
And-
anymore.
and-
And
Commission-
I'm moving- Look, I'm not wasting any time. I did it very quickly, okay? Just make sure that the recycling, if it's put in the recycling bin. Also, on planned, three different things in the facilities project. Leisure planned work is going up a lot. That's gotta be the golf courses and other things. Is that correct? Just moving
Which
this.
are-
Okay, I'm
which
sorry,
are-
95 facilities projects. 0007083, that's going up 400,000. That's got to be
Yes,
that's for the okay. The general government work going up 721,000. That's got to be 5 points.
These are one-time projects. They're maintenance type
Yeah,
projects.
okay.
So it's-
And the same thing with the constitutional plans going up $613,000. I just wanted to make sure they're all covered in your budget.
right.
And that's where it is.
And
Thank you.
those, they go item by item, based on the actual. And to
Okay?
answer
So
your
if I want
question,
recycling-
last time you brought it in the board meeting about the recycling, I already told facility, brought it to their attention. So hopefully I already talked to,
Commissioner Lockhart, do you have anything?
I do.
Thank you.
I have three things. One is on page 98, under base budget, business office. How many years are we planning to participate in the Best Foot Forward program at $60,000 a year?
which one?
The best
Um,
foot forward is
People
60.
wanna
That's grants and aids. Well,
This
I
is
mean,
one,
that will be
this
never,
this
so-
is 1 year. Usually they do, I think it twice a year they do for us. Normally
You know, I
that,
know this is
The
something that we
meltdown is
brought before the
beginning.
board, and they made a presentation, and it was, a wonderful little thing, but it's now it looks like it's becoming an every year thing. So is this something we've committed to for how long as a board?
from my understanding, every year 60 is, we put it in the
For
budget
6 to
every
8
year.
years, every year?
I don't think we put the number of the year.
Okay, I just, I'm just saying,
You
it's
can-
$60,000.
$60,000.
Anyway, I just wanna make sure when someone comes before us and they make a presentation, and we say, yeah, that sounds good for $60,000, I'm not thinking that means we're committing to that every year forever. I'm thinking we're gonna do this for a year, and then it's gonna get brought back to us to decide, was it useful, did we see a benefit, has there been an improvement? 'Cause that's just my thought process on that.
Agreed 100%.
Then the second question had to do with, let's see, it's in stormwater. There we go. Oh, lake management, cost share, lake management services, cost share, stormwater operations, page 99. I thought that in our discussions as a board, we had agreed we were going to be adding more to that so that more, funding could be contributed to lakes that were being used as retention ponds if they agreed to participate in the MSBU program.
We do have $40,000.
Now you got 36.2, and that's not a lot for the number of lakes that we have. And I don't know if there's anyone here from MSBU, but do we know how many lakes are in the process of application?
If Kim was here, she
Oh,
might be able
there's
to.
Kim. Sorry, you're hiding behind Grant's head.
Oh, she was hiding back
I
there.
think, last I heard, there's 4 in process right now, potentially.
So we-
Potentially. I mean,
okay.
they're not, nothing's
They
done
might not
so
all be
far.
done, but that's like $8,000 a lake-ish.
What we budget about 2 a year and last year, and we have not really done more than 2. We have not done more than 2. Those are potential, but I don't think anybody is already committed. But we normally do about 2. And
Well, last year we did 4 lakes in one chain. So that money was, and there was actually more than that. That was just that one chain. But I'm just saying that I thought that the board had given direction to increase those funds because there was an acknowledgement that we are using those lakes as stormwater retention ponds, and that we should be, if the citizens are taxing themselves to improve the water quality of that lake, that we as the county who puts our stormwater into the lake, we're going to be contributing more funds to the water quality improvement.
I believe we had that discussion and gave that direction as well.
I don't remember that in a great detail.
I don't recall. No, we've had a lot of discussion about MSBU's, but I don't recall that.
Could staff go back and pull the video? 'Cause I
Not
think
saying it
would
didn't
be the
happen.
direction.
Yeah, I do. We did talk about that. That we
I don't
would
know if
try
we
to
took
help.
action.
We would try to help MSBU's.
Right, but did we take action on it? I don't remember.
Well, I mean, it was direction to come back as a part of the budget process.
That's what I recall as well. It was direction to come back and increase it as part of the budget.
So it doesn't have to be decided right now, we just need to get that addressed.
We can look at it.
Okay. And then the last item was regarding stormwater mowing operations, which is just right underneath the lake management, a few items down, also on page 99. A reduction of $200,000 in mowing.
okay, the lake management MSPU, it is $40,000. We have addition. If you look at page
It says
95.
36,200.
You have
If you look
that
at
in
the-
under road stormwater, and then there's an additional 40,000 for lake
If you
management,
look
for
at,
water quality.
if you look at page 95,
Why would it be
you have
divided?
40,000. This 40,000 is what we do, we share.
For the
The other
stormwater.
36, also we kind of pay for material and anything depend on the program.
Can y'all, I'm not getting a look of acknowledgement that that was the thought process behind you, so maybe the county manager can tighten that up and bring it back.
Maybe it's, I don't know, Tim might be on it. Is it a way that it's line itemed because one has to go under drainage if we're gonna use it for MSBU versus what other they're doing for MSBU is separate?
2 separate funds, so it has to be separated. One's in water quality, that's general fund, the stormwater's under
Yeah,
roads.
you have it here, and then you got the other one.
As the share is for the program is $40,000.
Well, they maintain the stormwater ponds, maybe mowing.
So is that a combination of like 76
I
or
don't think we're
78?
clear, so maybe they should just
Yeah.
come
It's
back.
just,
find
let's
out.
let them do some work, bring it back.
Yeah,
Yes, you are.
so the stormwater mowing operations, reduction of $200,000 and change,
It's a new contract.
I'm sorry?
New contract. The service did not change for the mower. It's a new contract.
Something went down,
I know, right?
So a new contract.
that makes me nervous.
Plan for a mid-year cancellation.
Totally. 100%. 100%.
You know,
I mean, gas to run the mowers has gone.
Or a
up
big
by-
increase next year.
it is really, it's a new contract. I just put it out a bit, and that's what, and,
This is
but
very,
the level of service did not
okay,
change.
John,
that's all I have.
Commissioner Zimba,
So on that note, when I depart from this position, I'd like to come be one of the grass mowers. I just want to point out and note earlier discussion about uniforms for solid waste and so forth with an increase of 87.5%, a 50% increase, yet on uniforms in this budget, it is 0%. So again, I don't know, I heard the rain gear part, I got that, but I can't imagine we've increased the rain gear cost that kind of money for the employees out at the landfill. we might want to be looking at,
Well, it is,
most independents are now rebidding their uniform services because it gets out of hand.
it is.
Just a thought.
We go every division, they go item by item.
Right.
And if that is increase, they'll put those actual increase. Whether is uniform, whether is a part. Like if you see on the part, they decrease the 175,000.
No, I understand. I'm just pointing out that your uniform cost is unchanged. It's
Right.
flat. When we go to solid waste, it's an 87.5% increase. When we go to utilities, it's a 50% increase. My question being is, are we dealing with the same vendor? And we didn't add a bunch of FTEs to solid waste and utilities. I heard the rain gear portion, I got that. Just a question, just a thought of, if we're not dealing with the same vendor, then maybe whatever vendor you're using, maybe we should reach out to them for solid waste and so forth.
We will follow up on that.
A significant increase on the other end.
Commissioner?
I think with all of this, we're dealing with the things that you mentioned, Commissioner Zimbauer, in addition to different management styles. So perhaps there's one division that lets things go for longer, deferring things like rain gear, and now all of a sudden there's a massive pop to get the rain gear fixed. I think that's what we're seeing in these numbers.
But just to let you know, whether facility, whether fleet, whether is road and stormwater, they go, is a very, very detailed, they go item by item. And and also if it is contract is gonna be renewed, they contact those people, say, okay, are you gonna have some additional, even if it's not due as a time. If it's 5%, then go ahead and plug the 5%. If 10%, then plug the 5%. And some of them you see on the, he mentioned as a part, 175,000. The reason for, because we changed those program, fleet, it is, replaces those fleet. We save it on the part. So we don't budget the same because we had it last year, we keep it.
No,
So we won't. So now I'm just giving you the.
No, clearly understood. I understand, you know, the one-time and the cyclical nature of one-time purchases over a period of time. I got that. My more pointed question is related to something that is utilized every day, services presented weekly, which is uniforms. I got the 87.5% for rain gear for solid waste, but then we've got 50% increase of uniforms for utilities. Heard nothing about rain gear there, but yet you've got 0% in your uniforms. All I'm pointing out is that's not something that should change from year to year unless you've hired a bunch of employees or a contract has gotten off in the weeds. Just pointing that out to staff
I think it's noted.
to look at.
John, the question I have is, I want you to go back through the Seminole transition implementation budget. How much you budgeting for that?
Tim and I talk about $1 million.
Why?
Because, as I said before, we talked to the stakeholder, Osceola County put in 1 million, Orange County put in 1 million. And that to cover, it is the attorney for the reviewing contract and agreement. Also, you're gonna have the fair system, and
I got
also.
a question for Tim. Tim, how much does our entire attorney office cost this county?
So, first, point of clarification, there's no money for this budget in the proposed budget, so anything we add would be a public hearing adjustment. And I believe we're $6 million for the county attorney's office.
So there's 5 county, there's 5 funding partners. So you guys are saying that you need $5 million to
Well,
hire one attorney?
we're not saying that, is a no estimate. All
That's
what
a
I'm
big
saying
estimate.
is no estimate. That's
John,
all
I
what I'm
understand
saying,
it.
right.
There is no way we should be spending $5 million. I'm just,
Right, I
well, our
understand.
whole department here
Be-
is $6 million.
Yeah, because I don't know what is gonna be involved in the transition.
I'm telling you right now, I don't know how the rest of the board members feel, I'm not an attorney, We have one in the room here.
Well, now you tell me after I submitted my application to
You
it.
have two in the room, Commissioner.
We have two, I'm sorry, I didn't see Desmond back there, sorry.
Yeah, it is not attorney fee only, you have also some other stuff,
Right.
I need.
Not attorney's fee only.
We
So
can,
what else besides the attorney's fees?
what you have, I don't know if the boards are gonna hire somebody to lead the transition next year. That is one
We have, the
entity,
board has not discussed that at all.
not,
To date, the board,
Right.
is-
This
not
is-
this board, but
this
the
is-
the Sunrail board,
Right.
to date,
right,
has
this
not
is,
discussed that.
yeah, that is a placeholder, as I say,
I'm not willing to put a placeholder for $1 million.
Right, if it, that's fine, what we can do, when that, we can go into BAR, there is the budget.
I think we
but
do,
that is-
this is just my opinion,
that's-
commissioners, I think it's zero there, and you do a BAR as needed.
Okay.
I mean, if you wanna do 100,000 per, that's still 500,000, that's still a lot.
So, because, you know, that transitions are not been completed yet, the report, and the board hasn't
We're not
voted
even
on
taking,
anything.
so just FYI, I know we're gonna discuss, because we have our own discussion on Sunrail. There has to be a burn-in period for the Volusia County piece that hasn't even been completed yet. And that burn-in is a year.
Right.
So I don't see why we're putting $1 million here.
Okay,
for
that's,
Sunrail.
as I said, it's
How
a
the other board
placeholder,
members
I
feel,
don't.
that's a lot of
Well,
money.
I mean, I'll tell you, go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't think the number's zero. So I think one of the challenges that I'm having just in big picture is that I don't think how we're budgeting in a lot of respects is as conservative as we all profess to be. Let me just say, we're now at reserves at 20%, facing an economy that's about to hit a recession. This doesn't hang together for me. So putting in a zero when we know it's coming, I'd rather put in the million and not spend the million.
Commissioner, I can
They have
tell
a
you,
balanced budget.
I don't see us taking over the transition piece right now for at least another 2 years, if not further.
But it's the red line, green line cliff.
I understand that. But I don't think the red line, green line is even coming into place right now because it's so far. Next year, yes. This year, no.
So my position is leave the million in. We don't become the partner that can't fund whatever needs to be funded, and whatever we sit in there, it moves into the reserves. It's just excess in the budget.
It's not in there yet, the million.
Okay, so it's not in there. So
I'm just telling you, I'm very hesitant in putting that kind of money.
It's
in the
not in
budget
there.
line item. I understand that, but
Not in there.
I was talking to Mr. Dredge, and he was saying he's allocating $1 million.
He's
That's
requested
what,
a million.
that's I requested,
correct.
okay.
that's a lot of money.
Is a base on all, because it could be 100,000, 200,000, what I discuss it, say, okay, the stakeholder, the other, that was a estimated million, so we can put it in the budget, or when we need it, we can do BAR in the future. I don't know if it'll be 200, 300, or a million, but there are will be a lot involved if the Sunlayer board decided to
Well,
move
in
forward
order for
with
the
the plan.
Sunrail board to act, this board has to act.
I understand that, but we have,
Understand that? Commissioner Zimbow?
If you're talking about Sunrail and this expense, I'll just go on the record, I'm not interested in putting a penny towards Sunrail, ever,
It's up to you. I'm just talking
unless
about
it's
the
for,
transition.
unless it's for legal fees.
Okay. I'm just talking about the transition. That's all I'm talking about.
That's part of the whole big picture.
So we have any money budget for it now? Is it in this budget
The
session?
proposed budget has it's not included in the figures that we provided.
Okay.
I would say that we are anticipating public hearing adjustment for ad valorem revenues based on property appraiser estimates being a little higher than we had. So John and I had talked about maybe being able to fit in 200,000 or 300,000 and still be balanced, but that's probably on the high end.
Okay. Commissioner Lockhart.
Before we move on to other topics, whenever the appropriate segue is, I think it would be great, because this is a great example of, can we have an understanding as a board of what was requested by our team versus what it's been whittled down to? And I think I need
Yes.
to have an idea of the scope of, here's what we believe are the actual needs versus here's what we've deferred or delayed because this is what we think we can afford. And I'm not asking to have it pinpointed about, different departments or anything like that, but just to get the scope at some point before
Is
we
that in
leave.
their book now? I know it was in the last work
Yeah,
session.
it's in the work session document. It's tricky to, how do you want to present that report? It's a complicated report, but we track every request that comes in by department, by fund, so we can provide it in different formats. And
That's a big
what I
read.
think is, for as part of the public hearing, we'll have to show those adjustments between the proposed budget and the public hearing budget. Will also include
So
the
you're-
original requests
So, staying on this topic, there's nothing budgeted right now for the transition.
in the proposed budget.
It's requested.
But he requested it, and that's where I'm saying
He
this.
requested it after the proposed was prepared.
I'm sorry, yeah, he talked to us later. We did not have this in time for the proposed budget.
Okay.
It wasn't cut.
Okay.
We haven't got to the point, this is what we're talking about it now to let you know that it's coming.
Gotcha, and that might be splitting hairs. I'm just looking at the overall picture of, here's an example of where there is a department who has predicted a potential need. It didn't make it to us in the budget, whether because we determined as a team that it shouldn't make it to us in this budget, or it didn't get it here in time, whatever it may be. I just wanna have, and I know you're saying it's in here somewhere.
So maybe what we can do, Tim, is send them the report that was provided at the last work session. I don't believe it's changed, because the bulk of these were provided as part of the process. This is a unique situation, but the majority of them, you can look at a document and see all the facilities requests that were funded versus deferred, position requests that were funded versus deferred, and that's probably the best way to look at it.
I'm
At
just
least,
looking for one number.
a full number, not
Yeah, I
just
don't-
each detail.
Yeah, just
Okay,
if you
yeah.
would, just give me a number when.
Okay. I can tell you we had 42 million countywide deferred
Okay,
and 16 million in the general fund.
got it.
Commissioner Zimber.
Along Commissioner Lockhart's narrative, and it's just a question for staff. It may be helpful for all the decision makers when it comes to budgetary items. Is it possible, and I don't know what that number is, but if it exceeds cost of living or a reasonable 5%, 10% line item change, and that we be provided a basis why that change occurred? In other words, you added 6 employees and uniforms have to go for those 6 employees, or you added 4 trucks and this is what the deal is. I think that would go a long way, and I'm not talking a long narrative, but short little bullet points of, if something increased 275%, there should be a basis for that.
Sure. Yeah, variance notes, we can provide information like
Yeah.
that.
Just a thought. It'd be helpful, at least to this commissioner.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Hart.
Can I just, are you willing to put a minimum threshold on that, so we're not explaining 3,000 to 9,000?
No, absolutely. And I think,
A higher variance than 10% and then draw it down.
yeah, absolutely.
Over X,
Dollar
Yeah.
amount.
yeah, over 50 grand or whatever the number is. 'cause
Well, I think
we're-
you're better off working percentages.
But you can go from 1,000 to $10,000.
I
and
understand.
It's a 1,000% increase, and what, you're spending more money accounting for that than you are spending, so it's an FTE, it's a staff
Sure.
implication.
No, understood. Notwithstanding,
So minimum threshold is all I'm asking.
I
just
mean,
to
I've
get
got no
to-
problem with that.
Any
Yeah.
more discussion on John Dredge's Public Works?
No. Poor John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, John, there is a little bit more we have to talk about.
We're talking about 5
He was
points.
trying to get away from me before this.
We're now gonna go to the 5 points of project update.
I thought I saw John getting out.
Yeah, I thought I saw him getting that too.
He was trying.
Let's discuss 5 points.
So the materials that we provided, basically, John's gonna go over the phase updates, then we have a slide on project costs and the bond financing details.
Tim, what page?
109.
110, 109.
109.
I think 110's on the screen, isn't it?
Yep.
You want to go ahead?
You go ahead, John.
No one wants to go ahead.
I'll start and say that,
Okay.
Tim's like, I'm not jumping in
we,
front of the
I'll
bus.
start and say that we put $75 million in the budget through a line of credit to start the court phase of the 5 Points development project. That includes the annex, one parking garage, the central chiller plant or the energy plant, and then we have an additional CJC renovation that started as basically unfunded. We had put a few dollars in for design, but that phase was unfunded. John's starting now on design started on that part, and we are running into budget issues just because there's, to try and issue encumbrances and get things started, we're going to have to move forward with the bond sooner than later. So, John, if you want to tell us a little bit about how the project's going.
Okay, what we have today is, as I mentioned before, under construction you have the annex building, you have the chillers, the energy plant, you have the parking lot garage, and you have the utilities. Those under construction. And what we have in the planning, you have JCC, the criminal justice. It is under design today, okay, and you already funded the design. Where we're asking for the construction, and also what you have we have done the study for the connectivity of the existing building to the chiller, and one of them it is the jail. You have the BC, the safety, public safety, and you have two more buildings, and that's what we're asking for the under phase 1 and phase 2. We're asking for the money to fund those two projects. Also, I have not seen in here, you have also the supervisor of election building. Also, those are one active today that are going on. Active, and that's what the $166 million. It is we are requesting for the bond money. For the bond money. Now, if we want to discuss the other phases, the public work and the CSP or other project, those are not included in that $166 million. If you look on page 114, 166.4 million. We have is the CJC renovation. You have the additional courtroom. You have the chilling plant connectivity, and you have the conversion to the power line. Those add up to $166 million.
Anybody want to talk about that courtroom again? Sean says no.
So that's what we have. We call it phase 1, 166 million. Now you have another phases, if you want to discuss it, also provided the cost estimate, what is need, but that's what we have today on active projects.
Commissioner Lockhart.
So this has been the 100-pound gorilla in the room for the last month or so since we started hearing these numbers had crept up, and this is the first time it's officially been presented to us on paper, and it's horrifying because it's not. From my perspective, this is not what we bargained for. This was not the plan. We're not able to sustain this. So unless I'm missing something and someone's got some money trees planted somewhere, we're going to have to start doing some serious value engineering. If the original plan of getting everybody co-located on 5 Points is still the goal, then we've got to figure out how to do this differently.
And I'd say, don't design, bid, build. Be the first move.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's that's not gonna change, that's not gonna save us $100 million. So, I love this project. It's something that we all know we need to do because we don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. We know that there's efficiencies and cost savings that come with getting us all on the same piece of property, but we got to figure out how to do it for less money than this in some way, shape, or form.
Commissioner Zimba.
So I've asked for this will be the 4th year. I don't know that we can get the answer, which is the efficiencies calculations of abandoning the existing real estate, the value of that real estate if put on the tax roll and liquidated, as well as the efficiencies of upgrading to a modern facility and the offset of the maintenance that's going on each and every day on facilities around the county would be very helpful in understanding the true cost at the end of the day. These costs are direct costs related to what we've somewhat approved thus far under a design build basis. And we've changed the narrative. I mean, the reality is we had a study that was supposed to cost $600,000 and end up costing $1.2 million or whatever it was. And then there was changes after that occurred, change orders, and that's the struggle you run into. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered on how we ultimately make that decision from a funding standpoint and what assets may come off to offset those expenses. If you're talking about phase 2, phase 3, and moving the whole county services over to 5 Points. I mean, arguably the building we sit in, sitting on the lake, has certain value. There's other properties that would be vacated if you went to phase 2 and phase 3 that have certain values. And there's certainly a value of how much maintenance this building takes a year and every other building takes a year, and the efficiencies of more modern electricity and the chiller plants and all that. I don't know that work's been done. To answer that.
For those property, how much worse? When we started 4 or 5 years ago, the county done appraisal. That appraisal way different today. If you want us to update it, we'll be glad to do that. Also, during the CGL, the report, I understand the cost today everywhere. Some of the cost is a double.
Sure.
And because of the market, because of the situation. And that cost for CCGL was a proposal. Those cost estimate is at that time, whatever we did it, 2019 or 2018. And also in that report, they went through each building and they evaluate each building. And also they compare, say, okay, if you replace, you put a new building, that much will cost. Or if you upgrade those buildings, that much will cost. And if you recall, as that report stated that really to upgrade those buildings, it costs you more than tear it down and put a new building. We have not talked, and Tim and I talked one time. How do we, for example, finance and how we pay for the additional? And one of the thought I said to Tim, I said, how about we do CRA on those buildings? Because that building, you're going, if you build it over there, down the 5 Point, and what the cost, you're going to have a certain bond, you're going to bond it, you're going to payment. The value of it, the plus, there is a creative way of financing. Will be up to the board one. But all those data we provided, we'll be glad the staff to hire the consulting and update it. But all those data, when we went through 4 years ago when we started, we have done, the county done appraisal, they done evaluation of every building. Also, they done cost estimate of utilities. If you go from what you have today, what the chiller will cost, how much you save. All those was done in that big report, and I think.
Circulate that report, John, if you would.
Yeah, sure. And we had several meetings, if you recall, workshop. We can update it. Now, to go with what method you wanna put it out, whether design build, whether designs and builds, and we can consider any and all those. I don't think that you're gonna save those enough to finance to be able to pay for those facilities, but
Thank you, John.
we need the direction of the.
Mr. Applegate?
So, I don't think it's possible to go back to square one, where we are now. The question is, to me, if this has to get shuffled, I can tell you that from the time when I was asked about a space study in my office, now granted, I have a small footprint compared to others, but it's not that small. If I was asked today, I would need 1/2 the space now than what we have now, easily. And since I've been interim, I've traveled the county much more than I did in the past. And I've been to one facility that we're renting that we're gonna have a hard time finding a director, because any applicant who walks into that building is gonna turn around and say, I'm not interested. So something has to be done. But I think instead of going to square one, maybe we go back to square 1A and see just how much we really need. And that should reduce numbers, in my view, and I'm not the expert, but I think it would reduce the numbers substantially.
Mr. Applegate, I think there's a couple different questions here. There's one question that we know the number of the projects dollar-wise that we actually committed to, which I think procurement, which is in yellow, started mid-2022, and that's roughly $73 million, okay? That's locked in.
Agreed.
Then there's another one that, the other number, which is start mid-year of 2023, which is around a little more than $90 million. We've committed to it, but we haven't committed hard dollars to it yet. Correct?
Yes.
So that's where the 166 or the 160 something comes in.
166.
Yeah, 160. That's where that, adding those two numbers together.
Committed to it.
And I think what staff is asking us to do is, they want us to validate the 166. Correct, John?
Right, that's it, that's for the.
That's
for the- for the bond.
what I'm hearing from you.
Right.
And
It's
what I'm hearing from you is, that's what I think you and Tim were talking about, doing a bond for that.
Right.
Yep.
I think that's what I heard in my briefing.
Right, those
think that's
project is
correct.
already started.
Yeah.
Okay, not the rest of the whole project.
Okay, I was
No,
looking at the
understood.
300 million.
That's right, that's what.
I was going to the bottom
No, no,
line
and
of
that's
where we're
why-
headed on this train.
And that's why I'm
40
explaining it.
million of the 100 million is right on the top line, though.
Right.
And that's why I'm explaining it, where it's the 166 that staff is asking for a bond takedown to do that, which is all the stuff that I believe that we've committed to so far in real construction dollars. My question that I have, John, is that of the 90 million, of the 166, 90 million is an estimate, correct?
Yes, yes,
It's an estimate.
it's estimate.
And
yeah.
so what I'm concerned about is that 90 million is gonna grow. And, because in the world of construction today, everything is growing cost-wise. And the world out there now is, very few people are doing a hard bid, especially in renovation projects. People are either doing design build or see them at risk. It is not too late to do that, for that extra 90 million.
Okay,
And you can do it,
those
GMP.
renovation,
You can do a GMP, and you can lock in your price, so you know exactly what you're getting, so understand, and they understand what and how you're moving forward. Because once you put that out to bid, just like we've done Station 39, Station 39's come up 60% over budget, and only one person bid on it. If we're putting this out to bid, I don't know how many people you're gonna get.
Well, I don't know how many bids you get. We met with the purchasing and tried to come.
I understand that, I'm just talking about
But,
real-world
yeah.
experiences right
Right,
now.
but those numbers, the 90 million, is represent today, it is dollar
I'm
amounts
not
this
disagreeing
year.
with your math, John. I'm just trying to figure out how to get you there. Commissioner?
So, let's just assume that regardless of how you put it out to bid, that the firms that are capable of doing a construction project like this aren't gonna take a loss on it. Let's just assume that, and if they saw themselves taking a loss on it, let's also assume that we would see corner cutting like we wouldn't tolerate, and now we're in a legal battle, or we're dealing with a building that isn't what we wanted. So I wanna go to the financing side of the equation, because I think Bryant is right. Phase one, we're half pregnant. There is no such thing. So, there is no such thing. We got to see this through to the end, from my perspective. I think question on the courtroom, but I don't want to go back and discuss that again. So, asked and answered. So now the question becomes, what's the additional cost for waiting to bond in the inflationary period that we're in? I mean, just my common sense says, shouldn't we just get this out there now?
Can't.
With the bonds.
No. The construction bid is, the hard plans are not completed yet.
And so when's the soonest we can, so what I'm missing is a timeline in terms of how you do this to get the most efficient outcome for the top half to top fourth of this page.
Well, we're in the
The rest
bond
is a
process.
different discussion.
We're in the bond process right now, working with, and in fact, we were just scheduling meetings with each of the commissioners to go
Yep.
over the timeline for that. What we don't want to be in a position of waiting for is the number that we need to go out to bond. We're familiar with these numbers, this number, the 166, that's what we're looking at going out. We issued the construction loan last summer for $75 million. That will be paid off with this loan. And then whatever we need to complete phase one is what we would borrow. And what we budgeted for that 1/2 a year that Tim mentioned was estimated, anticipated on the pricing that we have.
So the question at hand isn't how are we going out to bid or what are we scraping off the bottom half of the sheet. The question at hand is, we need to go out for bond and we shouldn't stall on it anymore, and are we comfortable with this number? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what.
I'm gonna agree and disagree.
Well, they all said yes, and they're the ones asking,
Well, I
so,
said
but
it.
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna agree and disagree. Because we definitely should go out for the bond, for the 160, whatever it is. I also think that if you put this out on the street and you do CMRS, you get a hard number before you actually get the bond and put it out on the street, and you can actually compare to figure out what the real number is you should be bonding. Because the longer you wait, that number's going north.
Going up.
And you're gonna be borrowing 166, and then come January 1 or mid-2023, when you get your hard numbers back, you're gonna need 175, 180. And that's the problem with doing a hard bid. Commissioner Zibao, I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry. I was looking at Tim.
I would agree. You've got to move forward with the bonding. It's from the standpoint of, I haven't looked at the markets today, but the rates actually have trickled down a little bit. And if we don't act quickly, I'm afraid a month from now, you're really going to be in a bad spot. So if we can get a commitment as soon as possible, we'd be in a better spot. As far as John, I'm aware of that work product that was done. What we have not received is what the value of the real estate would be on the market and the tax revenue that it could possibly generate for the taxpayers, which absolutely should be part of the equation of the offset of the cost of this campus.
Yeah, I understand exactly
Okay.
what you're looking for. And the value of the property, as I said, we done appraisal a long time ago.
Okay.
We do have appraisal, but that appraisal.
They're old.
Is
Yeah,
old.
they're old. They're like 4 or 5 years old.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with going out to bid, I'm just trying to firm up how much we need. That's my issue.
And I think if you wait to try to
Oh,
firm up.
You're doing both simultaneously. Commissioner, then Commissioner Lockhart.
So I just want to clarify, I also would like, we're only seeing half of the equation, and so I agree with Commissioner Zimbauer's request, but I don't think you're asking for an updated appraisal. I think we could make an estimate ourselves, correct?
I think that's correct. I
Okay,
mean, I
so
think,
we're not looking for an updated appraisal, we
Right.
just want to know what all the numbers were and whatever it was that went around way back when.
and we can extrapolate from there, that's right.
Yep.
True. Agreed.
Commissioner Lockhart?
So since this is a piece of our overall budget, do we have budgeted the debt service for the increased bond that we're talking about taking down?
Utility.
We assume one payment next year. There's two payments typically per year when you issue a bond. Next year we have one payment, so, because it's just based on timing, so half a year. And to the point that I think Commissioner Zembauer and her were making, we had it at 3.2 million, we're now estimating 7.5 million, and a lot of that is because interest rates are higher.
So that's annually, so we've,
7.5 annually.
so we've baked that in, and when do our others expire?
Wait.
There's a point in time, I don't have it in front of me,
Yeah.
where it wraps.
Yeah.
That's in the anticipated debt financing. When the others fall off,
Right.
this loan would pick up that difference. So we won't see the savings that's baked into our plan
Okay.
pricing.
2030 and 2032. There's two
And that's-
separate.
And that assumes, doesn't matter, it starts as soon as we take down the bond.
Right. It's basically interest only to start, and then the
I thought that we had had a presentation at one point in time from a consultant that recommended not going out for the full bonding at the beginning because we weren't going to be using all of the funds at the beginning, but that we could phase it and stage it.
Well, that's why we went out last summer for the 75 million. We didn't borrow the full, I think it was 120 million at that point in time
Okay.
to get phase one done. We just borrowed the 75 million to get going. With the anticipation we would come back at this summertime with the bond.
And there's still a potential that we'll have to do two takedowns based on the schedule when we get it really ironed out. I think you have to have all the funding spent in 3 years, so it's possible that we will have to break this up into two separate issues.
Okay. I know no one wants to talk about it in the courtroom again, but I'm just, to Bryant's point, I think our perceived need for space versus what we've always used or what we want for space are two very different things. And if we're not gonna, pull the Band-Aid off on some things that are still in the yellow, we've got to be real clear moving forward that we're working differently and we don't need this type of square footage that we thought that we needed when we endeavored down this path. And the other elephant that I would say is in the room is the supervisor of elections building. That's not even on this list. And so I know that there have been some other discussions about other potential housing opportunities for that operation. I cannot fathom a 14, 17, whatever many million it was, addition to this at this point. So I'll throw that out there too.
Yeah, they estimated around 19 million.
19 million?
That's what they estimated it as a provider.
So if we end up on the yellow items, as Commissioner Lockhart indicates, from a space perspective and not needing what was already planned for, I'd like to make a formal request that the buggies could be put on one of the floors that we may not need.
Don't make me come over there. Do I need to come into that back seat?
Okay, what other constructive criticism do we have?
Just saying.
So I truly believe you need to go out, but I also believe that the numbers that we don't have a hard factor on, you need to firm up and figure out how you're gonna firm up that 90 million. Because that 90 million is gonna creep up.
But Commissioner, I don't know, in fairness to the staff, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's right, but in fairness, they could go out next week and get those numbers, and by the time we ever get around to it, that number's changed pretty significantly.
Once you do SEMA at risk,
Oh, that's a whole different program.
you do SEMA at risk.
You're gonna go to the street.
You do GMP, You lock the GMP in, you're
Right.
done.
No, I understand that.
That's the,
No, I got
They're
that
just
part.
locking in at a higher number.
That's exactly what they do. They're not stupid. They build in their profit margin. Are there benefits to CM at risk? Yes, of course there are. Are there benefits to design, bid, build? Of course there are. There's a reason our staff has recommended one over another. If we're going to continue to try to be the team that builds stuff here, then we might as well tell John, thanks for your time, but we got this.
Well,
I mean-
maybe a P3 and just let somebody else assume all the risk and we can just write a monthly check.
I mean, you guys keep bringing up the method of procurement as being the saving grace here, and I think it's, if we want to have a work session on procurement methods for delivering vertical construction, then let's do a work session on it. But to use every opportunity to bring up the procurement method, I think it's not our best use of time. I think there are reasons why our staff has chosen it. I think we could bring in people from other industries that would sit at this table and disagree with everyone, because there
Well,
are different
I will
benefits
tell
and
you this,
disadvantages.
that
And John
in the
is
market
nodding
today-
his head yes.
in the
Yeah,
market
I think-
today, CM at risk is the preferred method,
We go
because you
proceed
lock
forward
in your
with the
cost
bond.
and you reduce your
Whatever
exposure.
they need to.
That's a
So-
fact.
It is not the preferred
process.
method, it is the
Send them the
preferred method
timeline,
in certain
and we'll set a work session.
scenarios.
I
It's-
spoke my piece, I'm good.
And maybe this helps, and I don't want to belabor this.
That's what we do.
I agree with both commissioners. I would encourage, if you have not, read the contracts for what's currently going on. That, at the end of the day, dictates the cost rises and not rises. When a contract is written so that the contractor has the final say, guess what that means?
I don't know that our legal.
The cost goes up.
Approved a contract that the contractor has the final say today.
So could I recommend that where we go from here for now is proceed with the bond process, obviously. We'll come back with the timeline, and we're already working with the clerk comptroller's office on that. And if we need to, we'll schedule a work session.
Do what?
Well, this continued method of procurement thing just keeps coming up, and I know y'all want to be the subject matter experts, but I've been involved in building some stuff, and some pretty big stuff. And so,
So have I,
I know, we all
a
have.
lot bigger.
And, okay, you wanna whip it out?
Sure.
Okay, so listen, I think
That
we're
didn't
at
sound
the
right.
place where
think
if
it was
we want to
intended.
keep having this conversation, we should just have a work session on the topic, bring in experts from outside of this organization, and let's discuss it. But using a budget work session to hash over procurement methods again is nauseating. It's just, let's set the work session, let's do it, and let's move on. But I don't wanna keep redoing this over and over again.
We're
Well, I mean,
going,
the delivery method is on the document. It was
Because
before.
because y'all asked to have another document, because you asked to have, anytime we have a discussion about this, to talk about procurement method.
I didn't ask anything to go in this
It was
document.
asked at a budget, it was asked at a public meeting, and so staff has graciously done it.
I've not asked anything. So the question here today is going out to a bond, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any objections to going out to the bond for $166 million and change? $312,000. That's correct?
And just know bond financing costs would be added to that.
I understand that.
And I would expect that working with county engineer, we would throw some kind of a contingency in there for anticipated increase in costs over the next couple of months, because we won't be getting these bonds until October.
And if I may add, needed direction, last time the board about the, I don't want to break this and have, last time about the, it is supervisor election. You direct us to move forward and come back later on to see if the 45,000 or the 35,000. What we have is staff, we prepare all the document to go to advertise for consulting. And it'll be advertised, it is in purchasing, it'll be advertised in August 1st. One is a two document. one document, it is for the architect, and one document for Seminole, for contractor. Okay? Now I don't see any money in here. I just want to make sure, if you want,
I think you need to,
What is happening?
Totally.
it is, you want us.
I think we're giving
Poor
staff
guy.
direction, correct?
Poor guy. It's like no money for the.
So, John, I did not understand the first word. You're doing two bids,
Well,
one for
okay.
CMAR and one for what?
No,
what
it's
was
a
the first one?
it's a CMAR.
Got
CMAR
it.
method for
Got it.
the, if you recall, when we, under that condition, it was the shorter distance, it was the CMAR. And CMAR take it two,
Yes.
one for the advertise, for the architect, and one for the for contractor. My staff, they already prepared the package and gave it to purchasing, reviewing it, and put it together. The advertisement will be, for the architect will be August 1st, to my understanding, and week after will be the other. Now, I don't see any money for that
I
project.
think what John's saying is, if y'all got heartburn with 166 million, I'm not even done telling you what all I need.
It is really, do you want us to stop going with it? Because we spend time to put all those pictures as per your direction, and they'll be out.
Commissioner Zimmer, her, and then Lockhart.
Well, I think my last understanding was from our interim county manager, there was discussion with the SOE that there may be some,
Change of venue.
some idea that they were going to be able to do something with portable buildings
Metal
or
buildings.
something.
We have a meeting scheduled with his council to talk about what they're now thinking, but
So is it your sense that the scope of work that we've asked John to do needs to hold off until that discussion, or should we move forward with that? Because you don't believe this is gonna be any substance of conversation.
I wish I could tell you that I could guarantee what this discussion's gonna be, but the last that I talked to them, talked to Phil Capro, was that they're looking at a site, off-site from Five Points. So,
I mean, I don't know that we want John to move forward, I mean, until that
No.
conversation.
And I have
happens.
no interest in having external agencies get involved in this crazy. So
Right.
I don't want anybody to spend time putting a bid together for us that we're never gonna evaluate because we
Correct.
haven't funded. So thank you for bringing that up.
Agreed.
Because we're definitely giving mixed messages.
Commissioner Her, anything else?
So,
Well, I wanted a more detailed update. So I think the conversation is around putting it across the street on 1792 with a prefab building that's, sounds like it's, I don't know, container trucks or whatever. And what I don't understand is at one point there was an imminent need, then there wasn't an imminent need, and now it's in complete stall at their hands. And I just want to make sure that all of that is really well documented for the record, because this has been an amazingly frustrating process for everybody.
It sounds like John's staff has done the work.
we follow the
Anything else,
Ba-
Commissioner?
Based on the square footage that was indicated in the meeting that was not based on a space study. Let's just all start with that. So,
Commissioner
No.
Lockhart?
Yeah, my recollection of our conversation, and this is always dangerous, is that we were saying that we wanted to have verification of what size was being requested, whether it
Yep.
was the correct size or not. And I don't know that that was necessarily, I don't know who was gonna own that, but, you know, when you're being asked for X number of square feet and we're saying, please verify that that's the right number, I thought that was where we were in the process, was just determining the
meeting?
right number.
That's my understanding.
right,
as well.
but
I agree.
Commissioner, we don't have
There's-
architect under contract. That will be determined in the plan.
An architect can't determine the need. An architect will build what you tell them you need.
Right.
So I thought we were just doing some due diligence and doing some background conversations to see what the need was. But anyway, but you've already done a lot of work, and so I'll go on with the path of I don't want to spend good money after bad at this point. I've also had those conversations with Mr. Capro about the other potential location across the street and what other types of methods could be used for construction, and it sounds to me like they're kind of reevaluating on their own what their needs are. So I would agree wholeheartedly that we need to document where and how it's being held up, because as we have seen, people from that organization are happy to throw this board and this team under the bus without hesitation.
Well, and to me, though, the one advantage of how this thing has worked out is they are rethinking. I think they are rethinking a lot less than what they originally were throwing at us.
Until the
But
jack-o'-lantern
let's not skip
jumps
over
out.
the documentation request, Bryant, because what we think they're thinking and what they're saying and doing may be two entirely different things.
I'm trust but verify, I get that.
Commissioner Constantine, you have anything?
Document.
Document.
You know, I just hear the frustration from all of us right now. And
Pass the candy, please. Sorry.
Pass the candy.
Pass the candy, please. We're getting to the bottom.
A little bit. You know, I guess the concern I have is cause effect. Is the staff providing us this because they think this is what we want?
Providing what?
I'm talking about the overall plan here, or is this their recommendation? And if this is their recommendation, then I think we need to start moving in that point. I'm just, you know, I mean, I think we all want to get to the, you know, all want to get moving on the 5 points, but, and I've seen, how many different times have we stopped and started and stopped and started? The point is if this is fiscally sound, I know it's a lot of money, but is it fiscally sound? This is what, you know, the recommendation is. You know, we were thrown the curveball with the elections, supervisor elections, and we can't really make any decisions until we have a final recommendation on that. So throwing that into this is really causing me to have a bigger headache than I started with. So, you know, I mean, if it's going, you know, of just a few months ago, money was cheaper than it's ever been before. And now here we are, $40 million more, and interest rates going up. At some point, we've just got to bite the bullet, guys.
I think we've all said bite the bullet.
Yeah.
And he asked me
On the yellow.
He asked me, you know, and I said, "This is where I'm coming from. I've been trying to be quiet, but this is where it is. This is the recommendation. We've got to move forward. Let's go."
That's already funded.
Brian, I think we've all said this, 166 and change, including on top of that, what the bond cost is. That's what we're asking you to do.
Plus a
Plus
contingency.
contingency.
Contingency. And we have a meeting Thursday.
Thursday morning with Phil Capro.
And I think what we're also saying about that issue, put that on hold until we get better direction,
Yep, okay,
I'm not saying that.
okay?
okay.
So I'm not saying put that on hold. We need to hear from Phil Capro.
That's what I'm saying. We're putting
Right.
him on hold.
Oh, putting him on hold.
Putting him on hold.
I thought you were putting him on hold.
We're putting him on hold, John Dredge.
Got it.
Until we get better direction from Phil and his team.
Because John was ready to put on the street
I
August
hear you.
1,
I get
right?
it.
Yes.
Yes, the
Okay.
purchaser has the document.
Well,
We're
we're not
asking
doing
John
that.
Dredge to stop.
Don't put it on the street
We're
until,
asking John Dredge to stop. We're asking Brian Applegate to talk to Phil and Chris to figure out what's going on.
Never heard us say slow down before, have you?
You understood?
It's understood.
Any other discussion on this before we ask the public?
No.
Okay. Melanie, have any requests?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience that'd like to speak about this?
I know.
What else you got?
No one even wanted to
It's
hear
all for
it.
John.
One other question.
John, run.
Phase 2. Phase 2, are we moving on phase 2 or just only phase 1?
Phase one.
I'll answer.
No, we're holding
I'll
right
answer.
now.
What are you talking about, John?
This is only.
Phase
that's
two.
it.
That's what we're talking about.
The EOC
But you
and
still have
public
those.
works.
I think we're only going with
Yeah.
whatever
But
the
we'll
one
stop.
sixty-six and changes.
The moment we're stopping.
For now.
Yeah.
We're not getting a new office yet, there, John.
I think that's what we're talking about.
So can
I
I
mean-
just ask
Reevaluate the
why?
size you need, John.
All right. Yeah, what else you got?
I don't, and,
We're gonna move to capital
Not
programs.
today,
Good.
I can't ask why. We need to have
We've got
that discussion.
Davis and Harriet, he
We
works
need
on
to
budget
face
office.
this thing again. We need to rephase the timeline.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
I mean, at the end of the day, the numbers don't bother me. It's the cost of the money that bothers me.
Well, the longer we wait on that, the worse it is.
Exactly.
So I'm just, so can we reopen that conversation? I'm still
Still
stuck at,
conversation.
I'm still stuck at, that's it, we're cutting it off right now, and we're not gonna have a discussion about this. We need to talk about how we're phasing this. Interest rates are not going down. So neither are cost increases, so I guess I'm the
Phase
least
two.
capable of having the conversation because I don't necessarily know all the history of all the discussion of what's so critical. I realize that the courthouse is critical because the old courthouse needs to come down, quite honestly. But I don't know the need in EOC dispatch. I don't know why this was, we have to have these discussions.
That's what I was asking at the beginning.
I understand. I'm coming back for you, Bryant. You're welcome.
And
Is it, I don't know what department you went in where we can't get a director, but we have rental leases, like the need didn't change,
That's
just
right.
the market changed.
Well, and the
So
public
our
works.
response to the market can't be, okay, we're just gonna hold off on everything. That is what we did for 20 years. So I don't know what the answer is here. And I'm gonna say, we have to have revenue coming in the door that supports the expenses that we've already agreed we wanna do. So this is a giant discussion again.
Right. And I would tell you that Public's Work Campus, I don't know how they've maintained doing what they're doing for as long as they have in its current condition. I really don't. I mean, it's pretty bad.
You don't like the Quonset huts?
What's that?
You don't like the Quonset huts?
Well, it's the Quonset huts are one thing, but it's the atmosphere and the leaky roofs and the water that runs in on the floor, and it's a mess.
58 open positions, so,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I don't know what that is, I'm just throwing that back to you guys of, is this maybe isn't a budget work session discussion, but this is a discussion somewhere,
Right.
somehow that has to take place.
Right, and this probably isn't the time, but there's certainly something that needs to be done.
Tricia's like,
I know
no.
a lot of us don't like hearing these two words, but when I was with Orange County, they built that building downtown. They have a public works facility off-site. They have different locations for different things. I've just, the world has changed drastically. And as I was just trying to use as an example, COVID has taught me that we need half the space that we're using right now. And
Brian, I'm not disagreeing with you.
No,
We've
I know
had
you're
that
not.
discussion before.
Yep, and so.
I don't think that,
we need to
How
have-
does it drive this?
guys, let's get really tactical. That theoretical discussion doesn't apply probably to dispatch, because they have to be in the building, or to public works. So phase
Agreed.
two, we have to have a discussion on that sooner or later. Where that comes into place is in phase three,
Right.
in a couple of those instances. So we at least need to have the phase two discussion sooner rather than later, given the financing conditions.
Agreed. And I think it's finance driven on what,
So if I may make a recommendation, because we're running out of candy.
no, we're not.
to,
She can be down here with a whole drawer full.
Obviously, we have our meeting at
Please,
the
no.
SAOE on Thursday, which hopefully will give us some sort of insight as to what's happening there. And I'd like to have further conversation with John, and I do want to mention this in all of these discussions with John. First of all, he's remained smiling, which is quite impressive.
It is pretty
And
amazing.
Also, he really has been pushing because he doesn't want to let this project slow down because he
Right.
believes that's the direction the board's going to go. So I just want to ensure, John, that you're on the right track. Just let's figure out the SOE side, and then we'll be able to figure out how to move forward with that piece. In terms of phase 1.5, I think it is to the EOC and so forth, the Public Works campus. We need to update those costs. Those are 2019 numbers. And so why don't we meet offline with John unless you,
Those positions don't, but it's been updated.
It has been updated. I
It's
thought.
in the column
No,
mid-twenty.
the one we gave,
okay.
the.
Yeah, it looks like
Make
it
sure-
has
118 from
I
109.
just said on the slide 2019 numbers. That's why I was.
Oh, well, it went up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way, so another reason for us to have a discussion offline and ensure we're all on the same page about the numbers, and then determine in a non-budget work session setting with you, how do we pay for that? Because that's
Right.
the next big step for any of these future phases, in my humble opinion. So.
Commissioner Zimbo.
Agreed 100%. I would only say none of these numbers scare me on any of these phases at all. We're one of the wealthiest counties in the state, and we're one of the fewest that have built a complex that is arguably decades, probably 3 or 4 decades past due for most of it. But again, I think it comes into what the value of the assets we abandon and put on the tax roll and helping us understand that, as well as the cost of the money. The cost of the money is what really concerns me.
Yep.
If it was a year and a half ago we pulled the trigger, we'd all be so happy and jumping and doing backflips right now, but we didn't get it done in time.
I do have one more question from an education perspective. It is my understanding that you can, if you bond and the rates come down, you can rebond at a lower rate, but you cannot go in the other direction.
It depends upon how the bond is written.
Right.
Why would you go in the other direction?
Well, because, I mean, you can't,
For higher rates?
yeah, you can't, I mean, you,
Yeah, no.
Right.
We'll be locked in. They are fixed rates, fixed rate.
well, they're fixed rates until, if the rates came down, you could rebond to a lower rate. But when we go in, if we sit around and wait, we can't ever get the lower rates back again, is my point. Waiting is not the answer here. If the condition of the market is that it's escalating at a rate that we've never seen, and in the bonding process, you can, in essence, refinance to a lower rate if they come back down again, the no-lose proposition is to do it sooner rather than later. I would love somebody to walk us through that.
Okay, well,
Because this theory of just put the whole thing on hold is scaring the living daylights out of me. That's,
okay.
And most of the bonds have an early payment clause or
Yep.
Yeah, and typically you can't refinance that early, like, within the
Understood.
first year or two, but we would have those options as the rates came down. And right now, 3% is what I usually see for governments issuing bonds back before COVID. 3 point something. You heard today the rate analysis, they were estimating many years out, somewhere around 6%. Who knows? Somewhere between 3 and 6. When we meet with our financial advisor in the next couple of weeks, we've gotten on all of your schedules, we can talk about that cost of waiting, and he'll be able to assess some numbers to it to help you in your decision making.
Lori, when you do that, can you also ask me to put together a chart that actually shows you when you can actually renegotiate? Because when you do that, you normally have X amount of years that you have to be locked in.
Yes, absolutely.
We're done discussing this, then we want to move on to typical capital budget items.
Can I just say this? It's a matter of priorities. Everything's a matter of priorities. And, right now, we're all trying to, walk this through ourselves and trying to wrap our minds around 166 million and then another 136 million. If the budget can afford it, then we need to do it. And we need to do it now. That's the bottom line. And we've just got to figure out those numbers. I mean, I see these numbers, but I don't see what they, where within the general revenue, that we've got the money to pay for. And if we do, then let's do it. Let's move.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Well, just to further, so I think I've asked that much earlier on, and I was told that the debt service was baked in upcoming budgets.
We had some maturing debt service that was going to mature in future years, enough to absorb phase one
To absorb phase one.
without
So the-
much impact
so
to the
your
general
big
fund budget.
hit Comes with phase
Two,
and
yeah, and that's what I was,
beyond.
and that's what I was talking about, yes.
Right.
The phase
Yeah,
one
got it.
debt service is 7.5 million in addition, so that assumes that wrapping you're talking about.
Right.
So it's not zero, we're adding 7.5 million. And then as far as affordability goes, we did talk about the forecast at prior meetings. A lot of our issues are in the future. So in terms of affordability, we have to talk about revenues, we have to talk
Two
about
of these at one
a lot
time.
of things before we can make a recommendation on what we can afford.
I agree with you entirely, Commissioner Constantine, on if we can afford it, we need to do it. However, we've just been nickel and diming this
Yes,
entire
I know.
process. So if we're worried about an increase of $1,000 here or, $10,000 there, but we're acting like, oh, it's monopoly money when we get up to 300 million, like something's out of whack. So we gotta figure out, and again, we need to either have another, I know you don't like work sessions, but we need to really have some time with and we're gonna have individual meetings with our,
Yeah.
finance folks, but once we have those meetings, we need to be able to come together and have a discussion about what it is we all learned independently, so that we can give you all direction collectively, rather than in individual meetings. I think that would be a really, really good, because that's what happens. I just saw the eyes darting. They go and they visit each of us individually, and then they say, well, here's what I learned, and so we go down this path, but the five of us didn't have the discussion necessarily publicly to really give public direction of what it is.
Heck,
we
that
want
happens
to
when
do.
all five of us are in the room.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, let's
The
be honest.
confusion.
Yeah, so this is too big to just assume that we're gonna be able to do this and keep moving forward without some more public work sessions.
I also want to point out that the 300 million at the bottom total is just the subtotal for that bottom section of future phases.
Right.
So that's not the sum total of the columns.
No,
I think we got that.
Okay,
I
good.
got it.
I wasn't sure if it looked like the sum total.
Can we
Or
move on?
SOE missing.
Mr. Davison.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Afternoon, yeah, sorry. The FY23 proposed budget includes $134 million to fund 278 capital projects, fleet and equipment, as well as some grants. Today, we will present the FY23 capital budget along with the through 4 CIP summary reports. The capital budgets that we're presenting do include future years on them, and those future years will be adopted during those corresponding fiscal years. So we're presenting the 5 years, focusing on the FY23.
There's a list starting on page 124 of every project that Davis is going to summarize.
The first way that we'll present the CIP is by project type, and you can see those different types on the screen. These are all one-time budgets. All projects are one-time budgets. They're generally eligible for carry forward and managed by the department or the servicing department. With capital improvement projects, these are typically projects that are $50,000 or larger. It's new infrastructure or significant improvements, and they do include land design, construction, and associated operating costs required to complete the project. Fleet budgets are pretty self-explanatory. That's rolling stock and generators. Those projects are managed by the fleet program. And facilities projects are projects that are typically over $5,000, and those are managed by facilities. The equipment studies and other projects, they're one-time projects that don't fit well into the other types, and they're typically over $5,000. There can be a number of reasons why they don't fit well into the other types, but primarily it's because they don't reach that $50,000 mark to be considered a major capital improvement project, and they're managed by the requesting departments. And then technology is also typically over $5,000 and managed by information services, and it includes new software and hardware that is plugged into the county network. And then grants are also included in these reports, and they're one-time budgets associated with grant agreements, and they must include revenues and expenditures. This is the table to summarize the CIP by type. The first column shows life-to-date actuals, and you'll see the same format throughout the 4 summary reports. The second column is the current FY22 budget, and that does include carry forward. And then the proposed budgets for FY23 are next. The estimated amounts for FY24 through 27 are to the right, and then the final column is the total project cost, and that includes life-to-date actuals.
Can I just ask a question? Just because I can't reconcile this, it could be because I'm tired. So life to date, different format than what we're used to looking at. Fiscal year 22 current, but it includes a carry forward, and then what you're proposing to spend. But what I can't see is what we spend per year, and I don't know how long the life is.
So these are active projects only, first of all. So it's not all we've ever spent on CIP. These are active projects only, and our records go easily back to FY15. So 2014/15, that's what we're pulling in. I think it captures all of our active projects. There may be a couple that have actuals prior to that, but it could be spent in any fiscal year prior to the current year.
I have a question on that thing. Active or encumbered? Active meaning these have broke ground and there's work happening?
Excuse me, so active meaning that they are either a current budget, may not have any activity going on, or that the department has identified it as a future need that they're going to be asking for. So it's just anything except completed projects.
So follow up, do you have any idea of those, how many have been, say, encumbered for longer than 24 or 36 months?
We do track, during carry forward, we provide a report that shows all projects that are basically how long they've been established,
Right.
carry forward, and then whether they've had activity or not.
Any idea what the value is of, say, 36 months and 24 months?
I don't have a lot of data right now to present, but we can circulate relatively quickly those CIP reports.
Again, that goes back to a similar train of thought that Commissioner Herr had earlier on the FTEs and the open issues. Often we plan for things, and I get it. If there's a project that a department wants to undertake or has been approved to undertake, there comes a point where either the project's going to move forward or it's not. The money should go back into general fund or what have you. And some of that may be leveraged with grant monies that has a deadline, or it may not. And I think it's important this board should know what the value of those are over time.
We can put that report together and circulate it.
Davidson, can you tell us again the CIP, what's all in that CIP number?
Excuse me, which number?
The CIP number.
CIP number.
So these are the traditional capital project programs like John Dredge's sales tax program, environmental services. It's projects over 50,000, and road projects, water utility projects.
New infrastructure or major upgrades to infrastructure. They provide a great benefit in terms of dollar amount and operating function.
So you're saying that from 2022 to 2023 proposed, we're dropping off, or we're completing.
That's what I was trying to point out.
So the FY22 does include carry forward, and that's why I mentioned that. Carry forward is a large amount and is not.
But my point is, from 22 to 23, we're completing $300 million worth of projects.
It's not. It's independent of completion. These are all active projects that have active project budgets or are identified in future years as needs for the departments.
So
they're
the-
not projects that have actually been completed.
The column that's missing is FY 2022 equivalent of proposed, adopted.
Right.
There you go, there's your word. That's what's missing.
Okay.
Because it's not a drop-off, we just don't know what it was for this year.
Yeah,
That's why I had to ask the
Right.
question early on, because I was stuck there.
the 22 number is what we actually have in the budget right now for capital projects. 23 is really more part of the 5-year forecast. We are requesting that as new money for 23, and we're identifying future forecasted amounts, but
So the number that's in 2022, that'll take X amount of time to complete. It's just, this is the year that you're allocating it.
this is the year that it's budgeted, yes.
Right.
This is
And-
very misleading.
And they could have been budgeted in
That's
previous years as well.
Talking about, how many are 24, 36?
It's, I'll say, it's not misleading, it's a different methodology of showing
Planning.
a forecast or a budget number than what we've looked at, which is how it got thrown off. And so you have the unfortunate position of coming in and trying to retrain our brains.
Understand?
Welcome to the table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On that note, we do generally always go adopted to adopted for all the reports that you're
Yeah.
seeing. There are times when the amended budget makes more sense, and we always are on the side of adopted. For CIP, we typically wait until after carry forward to show you this is what's in the budget right now, 641 million.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and the 23 number still is very important. That's what we're asking for. That's what the departments are needing, and that's what we're looking to approve as part of this process. The 22 number is already approved.
Yeah, it's not the methodology for me, it's that I have to stop and think about this differently than we've been thinking about the others.
That's right.
And then the other thing that I would point out, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything that we're talking about is duplicative to what we've already been talked about, because it's in their numbers.
It's true. We were going to go through this quickly.
So you saw it already, this is a
Yeah.
different cut of it.
Right.
All pulled
Slicing the cake in
All pulled
squares
out.
instead of
Yeah,
pies.
that's right.
Just taking the cherries out of the cocktail.
So now I can
count.
sit back and not pay attention.
We can go faster.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
So we'll go back to elements. So the next way that we wanted to present this was by capital project elements. The CIP elements are defined by state statute and used by development services in the comp plan as well as by finance for standardized reporting at the state level. The general government element identifies services provided by the county for the benefit of the public and governmental body as a whole. Typically includes legislative, financial, administrative, legal type expenses, comprehensive planning expenses, and then it's a catch-all for other general governmental services. Public safety is just what it sounds like. It's including of law enforcement, fire inspections, disaster and emergency relief, and other public safety expenditures. The physical environment is one that's not exactly self-explanatory. It includes solid waste disposal, water and sewer, conservation and resource management, flood control, and other physical environmental services. And then transportation is for the development and improvement of safe and adequate flow of vehicles, travelers, and pedestrians on roads and street facilities. This element does include all components of the roadways, and that would include traffic control and drainage associated to roads. And
It
then,
also include trails and along those lines, the trails associated with the road.
if the trails are associated with the road, I think we still include trails in the culture and recreation component, that element.
Those are a gray area.
Yeah.
Say, even if it's a road project?
No, if it's coming through public works, if they're requesting, a lot of those are transportation, the trails. But sidewalks and parks, it can get caught up in the culture and recreation element.
Yeah, I think we've only got a couple areas in the county where we have a true trail right next to a road structure. And those I don't think we break out. I think those are included in the transportation element. Anywhere where it's a standalone trail, it would be included in the culture and recreation. And that also, culture and recreation element also includes libraries, parks, recreation, and other cultural and recreational services. And then here's the summary by element. The general government element totals $302 million in total project expenditures for active projects, and that largely reflects grant funding from ARPA and CARES. And then there's the public safety element that includes $7.5 million, and that does include projects like Fire Station 39 as well as future impacts from other fire stations, 23, 28, and 35 over the next 4 years. And then the transportation element contains the largest funding with $558 million in total project costs. And that includes $19.4 million for the North Street Corridor Improvement Project, and $24 million for Orange Boulevard, as well as $43 million for the local road resurfacing program. And then the next summary is by department. Public Works has the largest CIP with $686 million in total project costs forecasted over the next 5 years. Utilities, you can see, has $256 million, with leisure services having about $1 million, or $100 million, excuse me. The fire department has $115 million over the next 5 years, and that is also due to the additional stations in the forecast. Resource management shows $255.8 million in capital projects on this summary, and that again is more reflective of ARPA funding. And then the last CIP table is capital projects by fund. Sales tax is the largest fund with CIP projects, and it's just shy of $548 million in actuals and forecasted budgets. These funds are predominantly managed by Public Works. The sales tax fund includes $25 million for Oxford Road, $21 million, and $21 million for 434 and 417 improvements. The Water and Sewer Fund has about $257 million in projects for water and sewer infrastructure and capital maintenance. Some notable projects within this fund are $16 million for Yankee Lake rehab and replacement, and then $17 million for Wekiva Parkway, as well as $19 million for pump station upgrades. And then we kind of take a deep dive into fleet now. This chart represents the percentage of total dollar value of fleet purchased each year, and it goes back to 2009, which is following the 2008 recession. From 2009 to 2013, you can see that the combined value of our fleet that was purchased from those years is only 5%.
Zero.
Not a great amount. And then you can see where 2015 kind of reflects an attempt to catch up from the recession. And then another notable year is FY19, which was the beginning of our level funding plan to update and reduce the overall age of the fleet. This increase in funding over the last few years has allowed for major progress in reducing the average age of that fleet.
I have a question on that, if it would be appropriate at this point.
Yeah.
So how does everyone feel about where you're at with your fleet now?
Yeah.
Are you in a good spot?
I'll start by saying I think the program's been very successful. I think there's a few more stats to come about how few vehicles we'll have that are outside of our recommended targets.
Right.
But no, it's been very successful, and I think it shows up in the data.
Good, thank you.
And then so before we look at those specific fleet stats, the fleet replacement is categorized into 5 different groups. Light stock being anything that is under 19,000 pounds, and it includes vehicles from a transit van, a Ford Escort, to I think an F-550 is included in light vehicles. And then heavy vehicles are the dump trucks, crew dumps, semis, solid waste road tractors. Those vehicles that are on-road vehicles that are larger than the 19,500 pounds.
I think it's 26.5 or 26,000 GVW.
Okay.
I think.
I'm just going off what fleet tells us.
Yeah.
And then trailers, they're non-powered tow-behind units. And then the generator category does include stationary, trailer-mounted, and portable units. And then rescue vehicles are kind of a nuance on these. Any vehicle that is maintained under the first vehicle services contract is considered a rescue vehicle, and that supersedes all the other categories. So a battalion chief's F-250, while would be traditionally light stock, it is considered a rescue vehicle because it is maintained under that service contract. And so the current fleet stats, you can see that our current fleet is comprised of 1,201 units from the 5 monitoring groups. The acquisition cost of our current fleet is a little over $92 million. And the largest fleet investment that we have is in the rescue vehicles. To the right, you can see the target age of the units in each group, as well as the average age by group. So generators, we try to target under 20 years old, 15 for heavy stock, 12 for light stock, and then 15 for both rescue vehicles and trailers. And then the average age of our current fleet to the right. It's not on this chart, but some interesting and I think some notes to show the success that we've had over the last few years with our funding strategy is that in 2018, there were 23 generator units that were over the target age of 20 years old. Currently, there are only 4. Heavy stock in 2018 had 95 units that were over the target age, and there are currently 15. And then light stock was drastically reduced. In 2018, there were 234 units that were over the target age of 12. And as of the beginning of July, there were only 22 remaining vehicles that were over the age of 12 years old.
The fleet replacement plan was adopted as a 5-year plan, so 23 would be the last year. We did get a little deferred from COVID, but we are on track to be pretty well completed by the end of fiscal year 23.
Yep.
Questions, Barry?
So when we were going through that back in 2018, 2019, what we had realized, I had actually done an audit. Joe Rout Group sent that to me from over there on the mileage. And some of these vehicles that were 12 years old had 7,000 miles on them.
Underutilized.
And we talked about having a carpool system that this county used to have at one time, so that different divisions could use that vehicle as they needed, because they may only need it for 1 day a month or 2 days a week versus having a vehicle sit there. Has that been pursued any further, or any consideration given to that?
John Dredge might be able to speak a little bit more to it, but I do know that we do have a pool of fleet vehicles and vehicles that are replaced through the budget process that still have life left in them.
Right.
Would typically go to that pool, and then once they're retired from that pool, they're not replaced from the pool.
Yeah, it's a little different question. I understand that, and I get that. I don't agree with that strategy. I think they should be surplused out, and the money should come back into the fleet program. But a pool itself, in other words, if one department only needs a car to run to a certain thing once a week, another department could be using that, and another department could be using that for whatever their errands need to be or whatever they've got to run. And it sounds like we haven't really dug into it that deep. And finally, I want to thank John and his people for finally surplusing out a lot of the items that have been sitting around this county to generate funds coming back into the county. I don't know how much money that's been in the big picture, but I think it's over $1 million. Good stuff.
And then
Mr.
this,
Applegate?
I missed the debates between the 150 versus 250.
Ranger.
The Ranger.
Ranger.
Ford Ranger and
Yeah,
the
right, yeah, the one, yeah.
Get it straight, Jim.
Crank your window.
or it's the crew cab versus the
Right.
regular cab.
Right.
So, this
But,
Commissioner Kerr has a question.
Commissioner?
so before you went down that path, so light stock is a vehicle, right?
yes,
Right.
We have 509 and we have 1,300 employees. So that doesn't count
Right.
the generators and the heavy stock and the rescue and the trailers. So that number is huge. Because presumably most of the people in this building don't need a vehicle. They just need a
Building
vehicle
departments.
every now and then,
Building.
building downstairs. So that is a worthy research project.
I agree.
Go ahead, Davison.
and then this slide, we wanted to show that this year, as everybody's aware, we've come up under some significant increases in inflation. And so this slide just kind of shows what the increase in cost is for a couple of the most common vehicles that we have in our fleet. So for example, Ford F-150 has increased by about 24%. over the last few years. The largest increase really has hit fire rescue vehicles with almost a 50% increase in the cost of a fire engine. And even the transit cargo vans have gone up about 34%. So
With those numbers, that's not fully dressed out. That's just a stripped vehicle as it sits on the.
just the
market.
contract cost.
Because if you dress those out, that percentage just goes up.
Absolutely. And then this table shows you the FY 23 proposed fleet requests. You'll notice that, as Tim mentioned during the fire presentation earlier today, there is only $424,000 for the fire fund, and that's due to the prior approval of BAR 2249, where $5.4 million was approved for the purchase of 1 tower, 3 engines, and 3 rescues.
Before we go to comments and questions, any written requests?
No, sir.
Anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to the board on this issue? Anyone? Close public comments. Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Lockhart?
Kind of channeling John Dredge a little bit, we've talked about doing something, but I don't see any money in the budget for it. On page 123, the CIP project under the county manager of Rosenwald Property Development. We've sent out a lot of postcards. We've told the community that the project is moving forward. We've kind of given an estimated timeline, but there's no money budgeted.
I believe that's primarily because it's ARPA money is what we're at least initially doing. Beyond that, I can't speak to it, but.
It shows on this report, this is related to the purchase, so you see the prior actuals at 1.8 million, there's still 10,000 in the budget, so it just carries forward to this year. Yeah, we haven't added additional funding.
So since we're communicating to the community and to the media and doing SGTV spots about the project that's coming, we probably ought to start having some conversations about how we plan to fund that at some point. I know there's I understand, but a blank page is a little bit, would be unnerving to the community.
I thought we had them all in and talked about it not long ago. And I think our staff said, we want to be clear, this is not something that's happening right away. This is a multi-year thing, and gave a whole presentation to us and the folks that were there in the audience. No?
Yes.
Do I not remember that right?
But the planning costs money.
Sure.
That was a discussion about actual dirt turning.
Yeah,
So, yeah, no, that's not what
that
I'm
was me.
talking about.
I was the one that went down that path because the planning piece seems like it takes forever and nothing is happening, and so yeah, I would have expected to see planning in here.
Of some sort. So
And just to be clear, if it's ARPA, it's gotta be in here. It was a revenue in, it's gotta be a revenue out, right?
Yeah, if there's ARPA funding dedicated, it's part of a single business unit. We don't, we can break out all the ARPA budgets into individual projects in the business unit.
I see what you're saying.
So it may not report in that way. It is a little bit misleading based on what you're saying. This is a general fund business unit.
So, Mr. Chairman, so let's be clear then, there is money in ARPA, I mean, in the general ARPA for, for this project. I think a lot of the brick and mortar and everything is going to be paid for after, with the private-public partnership, and we sold the property. But there is money, and I think that just because, I agree with you, people will look at this and get unnerved, but we have to be clear that there is money in there for it.
Kim,
Yeah,
is it
so
appropriate for us to like an asterisk?
Yeah.
Something that tells them to dictate where the funding at this point is coming from?
I think a report on the ARPA budget, which is fully established in the current fiscal year, the entire amount is budgeted. It probably makes sense to break that out into a more detailed report.
Okay. And then my second question about employee wellness incentives, is this number plugged in anticipation of our new carrier and that new program? Okay.
It's actually decreased. It was higher initially, and so we cut it in half in anticipation of our new program.
Got it. Fantastic. Thank you.
Mr. Constantine, anything? Mr. Zimbow?
No, but other than well, I guess there is to just revisit that whole idea of looking at the fleet from a pooling standpoint, not pulled after their useful life is believed to somewhat still exist. But I would also like us to consider having a conversation with the sheriff's office. The sheriff and I have had a discussion. There's some interest in perhaps being able to save all of us money by having the fleet service operations combined somehow, like is done in many cities and other municipalities. And I know that's a big, long discussion, just putting on the table that may be something that takes 5-10 years to manifest, but could be a benefit of tax or dollar savings.
Commissioner?
I know that we said we had a balanced budget. How much of ARPA or CARES is being used to balance the budget?
13.8 million.
So without that, we don't have a balanced budget.
Yeah.
Just offer that from the question of, we ask, can we afford things? And the answer is yes, and that's because ARPA is carrying us. Fair?
Yeah.
Well, I want to follow with the question. You're absolutely correct. So how much is the value of the projects that have been put in this budget that otherwise typically were not put in, that were deferred over the past 3 years that are now in the budget because we have ARPA money to do them?
ARPA allowed us to fund projects that would have been deferred. It's hard to say exactly where that line would have been. I think it would have been very difficult to get to a balanced budget without the 13.8 million.
Okay, great.
So you're using some for revenue replacement.
Yeah.
We probably need to know that number as we're debating what we're gonna spend
Totally.
next.
When you say that number, you mean the number each year that the board is using, or the total revenue replacement number? Or,
Well,
I think so.
well, we gave the idea that, this is my interpretation of your statement, that, well, there would have been had we not had the ARPA money, there just would be stuff that wouldn't get done. But that probably doesn't address the whole 13 million, is what I think I heard you say. So we probably need to know how big of the revenue hole are we filling with ARPA, that is a cliff we're gonna fall off of, and we're gonna blink and that's here. So thus my continuing to push on the open positions and that stuff adds up to probably that number. Just saying.
Makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, was it,
Just doing it. Anything else? Mr. Constantine?
was it 40, I remember that we deferred the ARPA money, was it 45 million?
43, well, it's 41, really, 41.5.
Yep.
It's 13.8 million for 3 fiscal years. Last year, or this current, 23 and 24.
Thank you very much.
And if you go back to 2019, if my recollection is right, we had over $26 million worth of deferred projects in 2019.
And last year, we had a $7 million deficit.
Right.
As well.
I just want to say that, want to thank the entire staff. You all spent a lot of hard time and hours behind this, and your effort really shows. I just want to thank you all. Mr. Applegate, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I'm gonna have to cancel the tuxedo order for utilities. So no black tie dinner at all.
That's where the uniform cost went.
I think you gave us a lot of specific directions. We will huddle up and get back to you with all that, all those requests.
Thank you. Mr. Constantine?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Just on the schedule, typically we've had in the past the public hearing on a different day than we did because of the school board having theirs on Tuesday. But I believe this year they're not. We have a meeting on the 13th. I'm just saying, I think that there would be, as I recall, there's very seldom anybody there. And if we can do it on the 13th instead of the 14th, I think that it would be a benefit to the citizens to have
I
the
think
opportunity.
Mr. Applegate's looking into that.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up to the board because I did mention that, but I wanted to.
I believe Mr. Applegate's going to report back to us on
Yeah,
that.
we will.
But
Yeah.
I wanted to just let the rest of the board know that I think
That's
that
awesome.
would be a good idea that we could do it instead of having to come back
Thank
on a
you.
Wednesday and do it again.
And the 9/27 second public hearing, I'll have to appear remotely.
That's fine.
My daughter will be getting married.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's fine, yeah.
I just have one follow-up comment. You gave us several action items, some of which will require your direction, so please hold the 16th just until we know if these are resolvable outside of a
It
work
says
session.
if needed.
Right, some people,
If needed.
pulled off their calendar, but just keep it there for a little while longer till we know for sure.
Hold it.
Thank
Any other
you.
comments for the good of the order? So you know the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Oh.